Okay, hey everyone. Hope you all enjoyed the lunch. We have a perfect setting with lights dim, and we know you all had a good hectic day, so a perfect time for a nap. But John and I will make sure that we keep you engaged and we talk about PayPal Vault from an integrations perspective. I'm Yashvi Nagaich from Developer Product Team. With me, my co-speaker, John. How this is going to go, we've got roughly 45 minutes. So I'm going to talk about PayPal Vault from an integrations perspective, talking about the consumer experience, merchants' value for PayPal Vault, and then just giving an overview of PayPal Vault from an integrations point of view. And John is going to take from there, he's going to talk about the Postman collection, doing a walkthrough how to vault payment methods with V3 Vault API integrations. With that, for this slide, I feel it speaks for itself, but I'm going to try add a few words. So meet Kevin. He's a developer in Bay Area. He has a busy day, so probably he has no time or maybe less time for lunch. So what he decides to go for, his usual order. He picks up his phone, he opens up DoorDash, and places the order with one tap that he previously placed. His payment method is already saved with DoorDash, so it's just one tap for him to place the order. What this shows is intent turned into instant action for him. Next day, Kevin comes back, and he's pretty relaxed. He wants to try something new for lunch. And that requires him to download a new app. And of course, at that new app, he doesn't have his credentials saved. So as he's going about doing so, you can see his expressions. He's not pretty happy about that. But while he's adding his card data to this new app, a message pops up on Slack that there is a production issue. And like any great engineers, he rushes to rescue. So that day, no lunch for Kevin and lost conversion for that business. 1 in 3 buyers have reported that they would abandon a checkout or a cart if it feels like a hassle, if it feels like extra steps that they have to take. On the other side, merchants or businesses have reported that they see 67% higher spend coming in from their repeat customers compared to new buyers. And also, we know that the subscription economy is growing. Today, we see subscriptions pretty much for everything. In the morning, we saw subscriptions for socks. So what is the data pointing us at? To me, it seems like customers continue to value 3 main things. They want convenience, they want trust, they want speed. Vaulting is not just about saving a payment method data. Vaulting is more than that. Vaulting is about giving that or building a seamless, secure, a smart relationship with your customers. And that's what PayPal Vault offers. Speaking of Vault V3 APIs in specific, that's a unified integration experience for storing different payment method types. So it could be a digital wallet like PayPal, Venmo, it could be Apple Pay, or a card and bank, and many more to come. And with those payment methods, what businesses can enable is any future use cases. So it's a repeat buyer coming back, a vaulted use case like an Uber or DoorDash, or recurring payments like Netflix. And what we offer, PayPal Vault, is through developer-first integrations. So it could be a server-side API integration. We have a suite of SDKs, web SDKs, server-side, mobile SDKs, through which the PayPal Vault integrations are offered. And this is a merchant-owned vault. When I say merchant-owned vault, PayPal offers vaulting not just specific to merchant. It could be for LEs, platforms, all segment types. And one of the unique proposition is the data in the vault stays fresh. So with the network tokenization and real-time account updata, it enables businesses to have a checkout-ready payment method data whenever their customer comes back, or it's a subscription or a recurring use case. With that, I'm going to just play a quick video of a prototype that we were experimenting with. This is a Vault Integration Copilot Expert. This doesn't have a voice, so I'm just going to talk through it. What this Copilot does is, for a developer, when they're trying to understand what PayPal offers from a vaulting capability perspective, it can answer questions. So here, the question asked was, just summarize what vaulting is. It's talking about different payment method, or sorry, different integration solutions available, how the flow looks like. The next question being asked is how to onboard to Vault if I'm trying to integrate as a developer. Again, it just gives a summary in terms of the steps needed. And also what this Copilot does is it can also show how to test with PayPal Vault APIs. So that's the next step that's going to be showing, like, just test a Visa card vaulting. So it talks real time to the sandbox, and it shows the payload in terms of the request, response, so that for developer, before going to the documentation and just going through all the details, they can just play around with this Copilot to get a sense of what Vault integrations look like. So this is just an experiment. It's not a live product yet. With that, I'm going to hand it over to John to talk about the Postman collection.
Yeah, thanks, Yashvi. Let me see. So before I start the Postman collection, we just kind of give a kind of plan here. So Vault, for this demo, we're going to demo card and branded checkout, so PayPal Wallet, and this is API integration only. So what you have seen from Aaron's demo, the subscription is Orders API talk to Vault, and so this is specifically to Vault API. So you kind of see what's underneath. Integration flow that Yashvi mentioned, you can Vault without purchase. So an example is you want to save the card for future transaction, so you don't transact or purchase anything right away. Or vaulting with purchase is saying, I'm purchasing this, but also I want you to save this card information post-transaction. And you can, once you get the payment token, you can use for the future transaction later. And there's some buyer interaction flow for card. Some merchant require 3DS verification. For PayPal, you need to approve the billing agreement. So we'll demo both of that flow. Also, this is like merchant level vaulting, so merchant platform. And then the screen here shows the onboarding screen where you have to enable Vault when you set up the merchant on the sandbox, and that will authorize you for vaulting with PayPal. So this is the flow. As you can see here, the first two steps is for authorization. You need to create the access token and use that access token to do whatever you want. The main thing here is on the right side of the screen is create setup token and create payment token. It's a two-step because we need a buyer interaction where the buyer has to approve the billing agreement, or 3DS, you'll have to enter OTP. So let me just play this quick here. So authorization is done and create the setup token. Now if I look at the console, I will get the link for billing approval. So this is where the buyer logs in using the PayPal account. So what we'll do is we'll log into the PayPal account, select the financial instrument, which card you want to pay with the billing agreement. So you click on agree and continue. So once this is processing through, they will go to a return URL. The next step is create the actual permanent token. So here, oops, sorry. You can see this is the URL I selected, and then this is the create payment token. This is the permanent token will be created. That's like the happy path. Now, if we go into the details, I will show you the underlying Postman collection. Then you can inspect the request body and response body. So this is the first step, the setup token creation. This is a temporary token. because it's just setting stuff up. You don't really need this for future usage. So it's a temporary token. And as you can see here, there's the customer information, the ID. Sometimes merchants have their own customer management, so they have their own ID. In the future, they want to find the payment token underneath for this specific customer ID, so they can pass whatever ID they want. The payment source, this is where, depends on the use, it can be PayPal, card, Venmo, ACH, Google Pay. So in this demo, we'll start with PayPal, this shipping address information, permit multiple tokens. This is where some merchants has different use case. We're saying, oh, hey, there was a already billing agreement created for this buyer, so I just want to keep the same billing agreement. So this is flag tells you, okay, do you want to use the same previous billing agreement? Experience context, this is where the return URL, you can see here, this is the return URL after the buyer clicks on, hey, I agree. So this is the page will show. Or if they decide to cancel, there's the cancel URL. So I'll just demonstrate one more time here. This is the response. You can see pretty much the same thing. The link where I got was this link. There's an approval link here. And this is where the buyer goes to agree on the billing or subscription cycle. So if I do here one more time, this is the cancel URL. One thing to call out is the status. Initially, the status will be pair action required because the buyer has not agreed to the subscription yet. So if you do a get setup token, this is more detail. You can retrieve the details of basically the same response, except once the buyer approves the billing, the status gets switched to approved. Now that means you can use the setup token to create the payment token, which is a permanent token. So if I go ahead, create the payment token, this is the body, the type is setup token. This is the environment variable, the value. This is the ID for the PayPal instrument created. As you can imagine, you can do a get on the ID, and then we'll return back to whatever payment instrument underneath. Yeah, I will pause here if there's any questions on what I just showed so far. No? Okay. So the next, I will demonstrate how card 3DS works. For that, so 3DS does not kick in for every single merchant. The merchant has to say, okay, I want to do 3DS. So you can, it depends on the merchant setting. So I'll use a different merchant for that test use case here. So here I'm generating the access token for authorization purpose. Same thing, you have to create the setup token. The only difference is the card. So the payment source is card instead of PayPal. Verification method here is indicating, okay, I want to trigger 3DS. So if I go ahead, and you can see here, status is, again, pair action required means we require some action from the buyer. Now, if you say, okay, what if there's nothing done with this setup token? Well, we can find out if we call create payment token, use that pair action required status setup token. It will return 422, which is a client error saying, hey, please make sure the setup token is approved. So let's go back to this. Again, there will be another approval link here. This is where the buyer has to go through a 3DS verified process. There's a URL bug here, so I need to delete this quick. So this is in the backend, trigger the 3DS car verification. So we'll enter a one-time OTP. This is for testing only, so I don't need it. So now if we go back to check on the status of the setup token, it is approved now. So just to double check, the ID ends with 923. We just created 923. So now if we go create the payment token, using the same setup token, it should return 201, which is saying, okay, the payment token is created. And you can see here, it has some details on the card, name, last four, brand, expiry, the billing address, and here is the 3DS verification results here. And depends on the merchant use case, they can decide what to do with these responses. There's authentication results and 3DS secure. And you can do a get as usual. Card, same results as the create payment token response. Now, again, the key thing between setup token and payment token is setup token is a temporary token, payment token is a permanent token. So in the future, orders can be transacting with this payment token, but you cannot transact with the setup token. Yeah, so any questions so far? Yeah. Yep. There is no payment token is a permanent token. As long as you don't delete it, it will be active. Setup token has a TTL, and that TTL can be modified per merchant. So some merchant want to keep, for example, they have a batch job, they create setup token, but then a day later they trigger the payment token creation. So that TTL can be modified per merchant. And
if you vault a card and don't charge it, you get a payment token?
Yeah, you can vault, and then it's up to you when to use it. So sometimes merchant have a batch job, they create the payment token, but they don't use it until a month later. For example, subscription model where you can, the first month is free, right? And then they charge you a month later. If you cancel it, then they won't charge it. But if you don't cancel it, then they charge you a month later.
So you secure the payment token right then, and then you use it
Yep.
after your 30 days.
Yep. So that's how it works in the back end. Yeah, you have. That's where the onboarding, the merchant has to onboard. So let me go back here. This step where the merchant has to enable Vault. Otherwise, you won't be able to Vault. And then you will have the proper scope. So once you create the access token, the scope will be issued to you. Then you can call Vault to create a payment token, setup token.
So you're referring to merchant authorization or the consumer?
Payment instrument, like the card.
Yeah.
Do we do does this
Yep. It will enable card and branded checkout.
Just to add, right, like for any particular payment method that is being vaulted, the applicable authentication is going to be triggered based on the specification in the APIs. So the demo that John did, merchants specified that they wanted to trigger 3DS if it is applicable in that given geo. Based on an indicator, before vaulting the card, 3DS was triggered. Same goes for PayPal Vault. A buyer has to approve and go through an agreement before it can be vaulted. Similarly, same applies for bank, vaulting, or any other payment method.
And the token generated here, is it also interoperable with the Braintree transaction sale APIs?
Oh, can you use this token and then transact with Braintree? Is that what your question is? No, this token, unfortunately, right now cannot be transact on the Braintree side. But the other way around, you can, as long as you create the linking between the Braintree account and PayPal account. There are some use cases where some merchant will transact with Braintree, so they have the Braintree setup, but they don't have the proper setup on the PayPal side. But once you have, we can connect the two accounts. Once you do that, then you can use the Braintree token and transact on the PayPal side. Yep. And here, I think Aaron showed like delete. He was saying once the subscription is canceled, then the payment token will be deleted. This is the payment token ID is the one that will be deleted because that's a permanent token. If you don't delete it, it will be there forever. Yeah.
How does the expiry renewal cycle work with the payment?
Yeah, so we have account updater. The account updater will be pushing like to patch whatever, for example, the expiry date to Vault, and the Vault will be updating the payment token underneath the financial, the card underneath that payment token. But the ID stays the same, so.
And just to add what John said, right? So whenever a transaction goes through with, say, expired card and it goes to the network, we get the information from the network through this real-time account updater. That card has been expired, and this is the new expiry from the network, and that's what we refresh in our vault so that the customer is not blocked on that transaction. But yeah, the token stays as is. It's just the underlying we refresh as we get the information from the network.
So in that 3DS example, where you're calling it, I don't know why merchants would want to do that, but you're calling the 3DS challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Because I understand the 3DS challenge there's a risk factor that if it's not vaulted, it's actually more risky to the assessment of whether or not a challenge takes place. So let's say you're not calling it, but the other bank calls the 3DS challenge, right? Does it look like to the other bank like it's a vaulted number, or it's not? Or it's not?
So from 3DS perspective, so 3DS is something that either it's regulatory in certain geos like PSD2 countries where it is mandated to trigger 3DS. And then for geos like US, it's a choice that merchant has if they want to trigger 3DS. And that's when the SCA event flag was shown in the example. They would pass, say in a PSD2 country, SCA always required flag is what expected for merchants to pass. Now, in terms of the verifications that are supported, again, as I said, based on the geo, either it is recommended or it's a mandate that they have to pass that flag, and we would trigger a 3DS and it's going to be stored with the 3DS verification results. If they choose to pass, say, SCA when required, based on certain rules and checks that we're going to run against this, underneath the system, we may decide to not run 3DS. It's just going to be a simple smart auth, like a $0 or $1 check that we're going to run. Also, there's going to be a CVV check that is also supported. So if we are not doing 3DS based on certain checks, it's going to be a CVV check, the basic check. Prior to that, just the basic checks around the card data being sent, and then a smart auth, or what we call it, a $0 or $1 check. That's going to be performed before we are vaulting the payment method in the vault.
But there's also issuer 3DS challenges that can happen. So, like I act for merchants, right? So we you want to get the highest amount of approvals possible. So the card issuer can also instigate a 3DS challenge. And I'm told that if they don't know that, if they don't think that the card is vaulted, they're more likely to just decline the transaction altogether.
Yep. I may not know for sure, but the network reference transaction, the one that we were showing in the API sample, so when we are vaulting a card, that network reference transaction that we generate kind of indicates to the issuer that this is a vaulting use
So
case.
it goes to them as if it's vaulted,
Yep, yeah.
but
So,
it's not actually crystallized to that payment token yet.
Yeah, I think the use case was if during transaction, the payments team will have this network reference transaction, even though that they might not have gone through the 3DS, but the payments know based on the previous reference transaction, this card can be trusted. So is that what you're thinking during transaction, even though the card is not?
I'm thinking of the first time where there is no reference transaction.
Oh, the very first time?
Yeah.
so in both the cases, right, as one of the questions that you were asking in terms of the flow, with purchase vaulting or without purchase vaulting, so both are the models that are supported. So when it is with purchase, when the transaction is going to the network, there would be indicator going to the network indicating that this is going to be vaulted. So they have that reference. And the network reference transaction ID that they generate, we store that in the vault. And when the subsequent purchase happen, they have that reference that this came from a vaulting use case. Likewise, for without purchase use case, again, if we are running a smart auth, like a $0 or $1, we would be talking to issuer. And we would be indicating that this is a vaulting use case. So when that reference transaction ID is used for the next subsequent, they would know that this came from a vaulted use case.
But I assume, though, on that, if you're vaulting it the way you're describing, you don't need to do a $1 transaction.
Yep, yeah. So this is something, Vault as a layer is agnostic to what kind of verification is going to be done. We talk to underlying service that looks at the merchant, geo, other settings and things to kind of figure out what verification needs to be triggered. So it could be a $0, it could be $1, it could be like 3DS, or just a basic CVV check.
Is that something PayPal does for the merchant?
Yep.
Merchant has control over.
Yes, merchant has a control based on, as they could specify in the API, that run a 3DS check, and then PayPal would trigger that check based on a merchant setting.
Perspective, like I help them design these programs. I can let them design a program that's like $0 on day 1, but then vault the card, and then on day 30 they can start their continuity billing without having charged $1 on day 1.
Yes, yeah. So again, it's not that something we decide if it's going to be $0 or $1. So the underlying service that runs the verification talk to the issuer, and again, based on the merchant profile and a lot of other settings, the decision is made that should a $0 be triggered or a $1 should be triggered for the merchant.
If we get the payment token back, that means it's all settled, so that we don't have to worry about it. Whatever happened, they did it,
Yes.
and we have the token.
Yep.
Yeah, you can use it whenever after you get the payment token back. So it's really up to you when that transaction should be happening after you get the payment token back. So there is no requirement saying as soon as you get the payment token, you have to transact. Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah, if no questions, so the Postman collection, the flow chart, Postman flow chart, I will post in the public API collection hosted by PayPal, so you will have access to this after the demo. So
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
thanks for your time.